Welcome to the Accelerated Investor Podcast with Josh Cantwell. If you love entrepreneurship and investing in real estate, then you are in the right place. Josh is the CEO of Freeland Ventures Real Estate Private Equity and has personally invested in well over 500 properties all across the country. He's also made hundreds of private lender loans and owns over 1,000 units of apartments. Josh is an expert at raising private money for deals, and he prides himself on never having had a boss in his entire adult life. Josh and his team also mentor investors and entrepreneurs from all over the world. He doesn't dream about doing deals. He actually does them, and so do his listeners and students. Now sit back, listen, learn, and accelerate your business, your life, and your investing with the Accelerated Investor Podcast.
So hey guys, welcome back. What's going on? It's Josh. Welcome back to Accelerated Investor. I'm so excited to be with you. Today, we're going to be talking about finding motivated sellers with multiple layers of COVID motivation. And what I mean by that is, in any normal real estate cycle, finding a seller, a motivated seller, whether it's a single family home, a duplex, a quad, whether it's a small apartment building, a large apartment building, normally a seller is going to be much more willing to sell their property if they have multiple layers of motivation. Okay. So when we think about motivation for a seller, one simple, easy form of motivation is when you find a foreclosure. You find a foreclosure, it's owned by a bank. The bank has already foreclosed on somebody. The bank now owns it. It's now considered an REO, and the bank is motivated to sell because they want to get it off their books. That's one layer of motivation. Another layer of motivation that's typical, you hear a lot of people talk about, is absentee owners. Okay, an absentee owner is someone who lives out of the area. Okay, they own this property at 123 Main Street, let's say in Cincinnati, Ohio. But that person lives in Charlotte, North Carolina, and they're managing a property that is hours and hours away from where they live. So they're an absentee owner. Some people say, well, go after absentee owners. Okay, great. Some gurus say, hey, go after a seller who has high equity. That person is much more willing to sell. They've owned the property for a long time. They are motivated to sell because they have high equity and they want to unlock their cash. They want to unlock their equity in that building or in that residential home. So that's a layer of motivation. Some people say, well, go after people who are in probate, right? That somebody has passed away, grandma and grandpa have both passed away, that property's now in probate. It's being passed along to the kids or the grandkids. That's a layer of motivation. They are in probate. And the kids want to sell the home to, again, unlock their cash. Another reason for someone to be motivated would be that they're in pre-foreclosure, meaning they're in default on their loan. They're a month or 2 or 3 or 4 months behind on their payments, and they're not, they haven't been foreclosed on yet, but they're in pre-foreclosure. Okay, that means that they have a notice of default that's been filed, or the bank has started the foreclosure, but it hasn't gone all the way through the foreclosure process. The seller still owns the property, but they're getting pounded by the bank to either bring the payments current or get foreclosed on. That's a layer of motivation. Somebody that has a pending eviction. Obviously with COVID, a lot of people don't know they're going to afford their rent payment or their mortgage payment. And so if they can't afford their rent, they're not paying the rent. And now the owner of the property or the owner of the apartment building is seeing a spike in non-payments, and eventually there's an eviction that's filed. That's a layer of motivation, okay? Another layer of motivation could be physical distress, meaning the property has like broken windows and a roof that's leaking, or shingles that are falling off, or they've got landscaping that's not tight, or a kitchen that's 15, 20 years outdated or more, bathrooms that have leaks. Maybe there's cracks in the foundation and there's leaking in the foundation. Maybe the property just has lots of stuff that's piled up, lots of cosmetic things that have piled up, new paint, new flooring, new HVAC systems, et cetera, et cetera. That's physical distress. And then finally, you could have a vacant house. Okay, vacant house, meaning nobody lives there. And so there's all of these different layers of seller motivation. And when you're in a tight market means it's a seller's market. There's not a lot of inventory, and anything that's quote unquote on the market with a realtor, on the market with a listing agent on the MLS or on Zillow or Realtor.com. There's a ton of activity. There's a ton of showings because everybody knows how to find deals that are quote unquote on the market. All right, I actually have a listing that just went live today. You can check it out. You can look it up on the internet. 2801 West Royalton Road in Broadview Heights, Ohio. Just listed it today for $399,900. It went live on the MLS today. It went live on Airbnb today. And we've been doing like a coming soon listing for the last couple days. So we've already got 6 showings lined up today and tomorrow. $400,000 house. It's amazing. Go look at the pictures. Look it up. 2801 West Royalton Road in Broadview Heights, Ohio. Look up the pictures. It looks amazing. You can check it out on Airbnb. You can find it on Zillow, Realtor.com, the MLS, Trulia, all that stuff. But there's already 6 showings and there's already 3 Airbnb bookings in the next couple of weeks, including Thanksgiving weekend, because there's a lack of inventory. Okay, so if you're just waiting for stuff to hit the MLS, if you're waiting for stuff to hit Zillow, you're going to be in a super competitive situation. I'm hoping, as a seller of this property for $400,000, I'm hoping I get multiple offers and we get into a bidding war and somebody bids the price up and we make even more money. And then in the middle of the property, while we're waiting for it to sell, we're also going to Airbnb it and make some cash flow. Okay, so you should try that. That's a little tip for you. But that is that's the old way. That's the conventional way of doing real estate. The way we do real estate now is we find sellers who have multiple layers of motivation. Okay, so let's look at this for a second. So I was given some data, and if you're on YouTube right now, or you can go over to YouTube, you can catch this podcast, this training on YouTube. You're going to see my screen. And we're going to talk about the moratoriums, okay? The eviction and the foreclosure moratoriums. What's interesting is if you look at April and May of 2020, the data that's on my screen, there's actually more 30-day delinquents and more 60-day delinquents in May and April and June and July and August of 2020 than there were during the Great Recession of 07, 08, 09, 2010, okay? So there is higher delinquencies right now, but the foreclosure inventory has declined in April, May, June, and July. So the delinquency rates are up, but the foreclosure rate inventory is down because of the federal eviction and foreclosure moratoriums signed by President Trump to give everybody more time to let COVID, try to everybody get resettled from COVID and get their jobs back and be able to afford their rent and their mortgage. My newest and most powerful real estate investing book, The Flip System, is now available. And for a limited time, you can grab your free copy at getflipsystem.com/podcast. Using the same proven principles, secrets, and investing strategies I'm sharing in this book, I've been able to personally close over 750 highly profitable real estate deals over the last 15 years, make over 400 private lender loans, raise over $30 million of private money, and acquire over 2,000 units of apartments. Get my newest book now for free for a limited time at getflipsystem.com/podcast. That's getflipsystem.com/podcast. In 2021 and 2022, you're going to see there's about 12,000 business as usual completed foreclosures each and every month. So those are going to continue to happen. Now, because of the federal foreclosure moratoriums that have been passed through December 31st of 2020, you're going to see a backlog of 108,000 additional foreclosures that are backlogged that go into next year. So one bucket of motivation is pending business as usual foreclosures. There's 12,000 of those per month. And there's going to be 108,000 backlogged foreclosures that have been postponed due to the federal foreclosure moratorium. So that's the second big bucket. The third big bucket is all the people who have entered into forbearance agreements. So there's about 5 million forbearances that have been started. About 1 million of those forbearances have gone into loan modifications. And out of those loan modifications, about 25% of those loan modifications will fail based on past performance of loan modifications. 25% of those will fail. That's data directly from the government. 25% of loan modifications fail, and those people end up in foreclosure. So to total this up, the next 2-year tally for 2021 and 2022, you got almost 700,000 new foreclosure actions. You've got 300,000 business as usual, 12,000 a month, which adds up to 300,000 business as usual foreclosures, plus 108,000 that are backlogged from this year that will push into next year, plus 250,000 loan mods that will fail. It's about 700,000 foreclosure actions. Now, to put that in perspective, in 2007 and 2008, there were 1.4 million foreclosure actions in 2007, 2008. So it's about half. So it's not Armageddon. COVID is not causing the Armageddon of 2007, 8, 9. We're not going to have a banking crisis. We're not going to have banks that are literally going under. We're not going to have a monetary problem because there's so much money in the system right now. But we are going to see about half the number of foreclosures. Okay? So lots of opportunity coming. Lots of layers of motivation coming. You're also going to see it's about a 30% increase. So in 2018 and 2019, there were about 500,000 foreclosure actions. Okay, so when you get to 700,000 foreclosure actions, that represents about a 30% increase. That's what you're going to see. Now, on top of that, we don't know how all these evictions are going to impact homeowners because some of these eviction moratoriums are being pushed out. We don't know if tenants are going to be able to afford the rent. We don't know if there's going to get more stimulus that's going to get passed. Okay, this election is coming up in less than 30 days. Okay, so when we talk about you as a real estate investor, the first thing that you need to be successful as a real estate investor is to find houses at a discount, and that'll most likely come from sellers who would want to sell at a discount because they have multiple layers of distress. So the house is a problem for them and they're willing to sell it, unload it, and get rid of it. It's no longer something that they have, any kind of emotional tie to. They need to sell it because they need to get out from under it. They get out from underneath it because they have all these layers of motivation. Okay. So like an out-of-town owner who also has high equity that want to unlock, and they're potentially facing a new foreclosure, can't afford the payments because there's an eviction and the house is now vacant and the house has physical distress. So what I'm specifically teaching my members right now is how specifically to find these sellers who have all these layers of motivation. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll put some links in this webinar or in this podcast. We'll put some links over to our webinar so you can go watch our free class. It's about a 60 to 90 minute class that you can check out that specifically addresses this issue of, if you're a real estate investor, how do you find sellers with multiple layers of motivation? Okay. And we'll make sure that you get the link. It's going to be in the show notes, and we'll make sure that you can register for that class. And that will show you how to kind of fish in a pond where there's boatloads of fish, that you can fish for because they have all these multiple layers of seller motivation. Okay, over the last 6 months since COVID hit back in March of 2020, the number of sellers who are selling now of multiple layers of motivations is astonishing. They have evictions, they have foreclosures, they have equity, they have a property they inherited, they've got a notice of default coming, they have an eviction coming, the property has physical distress, they've got equity that they want to unlock, and they're an out-of-town landlord. Okay? So don't fall into this old conventional mindset that you've got to just go buy foreclosures. Don't go after this old conventional mindset that you've got to find properties that are just absentee owners or properties that just have high equity. What you want to do is stack these layers of motivation on top of each other so that you can find sellers who really, really, really have to sell. Not might consider selling, but have to sell. All right? So that's our strategy going forward. That's the strategy for the next 2 years. It's absolutely working right now. It's going to work for the next couple of years. If you're interested in learning more, check out the webinar, check out the show notes, and we'll teach you exactly how to do it. If you're on the webinar and you like what you're hearing and you want to take the next step is jump into our what's called our immersion coaching program. It's 30 days of live coaching. It's 4 live calls a week. You're absolutely going to love it. Take that next action if you think that makes sense for you. All right? So guys, I got to run. The doorbell's ringing. The dogs are going bananas. I got to sign some loan documents, and I got to sign a new bank account for a new 16-unit building that we're buying from a seller who has multiple layers of motivation, who's selling a 16-unit apartment building. So it really works. I couldn't have timed that better to be recording this live podcast and have my doorbell ring and my dogs go bananas, where I'm actually signing, closing, and signing up bank accounts for a brand new $1 million apartment building that we're literally closing on tomorrow. Couldn't have planned it better. You guys are awesome. If you like this podcast, leave us a 5-star rating. Check out the show notes for that webinar. We'll talk to you soon. Take care. Hey, Josh here. And do you want to win a free Accelerated Investor t-shirt? All you have to do is give Accelerated Investor, our podcast, Accelerated Investor, a rating and a review on iTunes, okay? Do that now. Then send us a screenshot on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter. What we're gonna do then is every week we're gonna pick our favorite rating and review, and we're gonna send that person a free t-shirt and maybe, again, some other cool, fun stuff as well from Accelerated Investors. So again, don't forget to take a screenshot. Leave a rating, review, take a screenshot, send it to us so we know exactly who you are, and then once a week, every week on the podcast, we will announce a new winner. Don't forget to take a screenshot and send it to us so we know exactly who you are. We'll announce a new winner every week.
You've been listening to Josh Cantwell and the Accelerated Investor Podcast. Leave a comment on our iTunes channel and let us know what you want to learn next or who you'd like Josh to interview. While you're there, give us a 5-star rating and make sure to subscribe so you can be the first to hear new episodes. Follow Josh Cantwell and his companies, Strategic Real Estate Coach and Freeland Ventures, on all social media platforms now, and stay up to date on new training and investment opportunities. To start your journey toward the lifestyle you've always dreamed of, apply for coaching at joshcantwellcoaching.com.